Back in 1998, Scooby-Doo returned after a 4-year silence break, or 7 years if you don't include the series. This time it came back as a movie format, meaning it was direct-to-video, one of the first, and not a direct-to-TV special as we are accustomed to in the past. Now, if you're scratching your head and confused about what's the difference between direct-to-video and direct-to-TV, it's quite simple. Direct-to-video came out on home media rather than being shown on TV to begin with, whereas direct-to-TV was actually aired on TV before being released on home media. This was a really big deal back in the day, where showing movies, or like Scooby-Doo movies on TV, was an ideal thing. Nowadays, Scooby-Doo mostly comes out on home media releases rather than being shown on TV streaming services. The direct-to-TV lasted between 1987 and 1994, and it consisted of 4 movies. So what were these direct-to-TV films, you may ask? Well, they were none other than the Booze Brothers, followed by the Ghoul School. Then, surprisingly enough, Reluctant came in the mix. That was a good howler. And then ending off with Arabian Nights. So back in 1998, Warner Bros. Released Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. That is right, on Zombie Island. Not in Zombie Island, and for that matter, but rather on Zombie Island. And make no mistake, this movie does not fool around. It's not your typical unmasking villains that we are accustomed to with previous installments of Scooby-Doo. No, this was in fact with real supernatural monsters with a real dark tone to what Scooby-Doo could be if it was set in an alternate universe where this dark theme occurred. When the movie starts, we get introduced to this creepy castle that reminds me a bit of the Castlevania castle. It looks terrifying. I think what makes this theme even more better is the fact that it has this high intense downpour of rain with a hint of thunder, brings more of a creepy vibe to the castle and sets a tone to what this movie is all about. Inside the castle we get to see so many different angles and positions, and from this we know that it's a massive castle. The animators did an amazing job on this, capturing all the details that you would expect from a creepy castle. Not even 2 minutes into the video and we already get to see this creature rip open a strong sturdy door, revealing the entire gang is hiding from the inside. Like, if that wasn't terrifying enough, imagine trying to run and hide from this thing. Oh wait. Go Shaggy? Moving on, let's take a look at another great scene that takes place inside the castle during the chase music. We see the swamp monster divert his attention to Fred, Daphne and Velma, which doesn't seem to go well for Velma and Daphne because we see them getting crushed through, and yes, I mean through a balcony. And I know what you guys are going to say, it's like, Mark, it's an old building, it's always going to be unstable, to which I reply with, hey, if it's unstable, then why has the entire building fallen down? And then you may follow up with, oh, go subscribe. To which I will finally reply, ending the conversation once and for all, turn on notifications. Now back over the balcony, we see our saviour Fred kick into action. I love how he lets go of Velma and not Daphne. That's true love right there. There's just one thing that confuses me. In this shot, we see a Fred letting go of Velma. She manages to grab onto Daphne's leg. But in a later shot, when they show them getting pulled up for a brief screen time, we see that Velma is on the ledge, not on Daphne's leg. How the frickle pickle did she manage to do that? Did she leap across or something? No, that can't be right. Come on, Mark, if she leaped across, then wouldn't it be easier just to leap upwards rather than going to the left? It makes no logical explanation. Like, talk about a damsel in distress. Time goes by, and the members of the Mystery Inc. gang have gone their separate ways after becoming bored of mystery solving. And yes, I know, it's not something you or I want to see or hear in a Scooby-Doo episode or a movie, but face the facts, it happened. Daphne is hosting her own show on a television series called Coast to Coast with Daphne Blake. Apparently is really successful. While on the subject, the mystery that we saw at the beginning of the movie was basically an entourage to Daphne's show. It wasn't really well explained until you got more into the mystery solving bit of that one. But yeah, it was just basically a storytelling of their previous mystery solving together as a group. Fred is working alongside her as the producer and the one-man film crew for Coast to Coast. Velma is working in a bookstore. Nothing interesting, let's move on. Shaggy and Scooby, however, are bouncing from jobs to jobs. The most recent one was working security for an airport, mostly securing contraband, aka food. The funny bit I like about this is when they try and go back to the room to place the item of contraband into storage.
Like, is this the jackpot of jobs or what?
And then another scene later of them getting into trouble for nearly clearing out the entire room full of the contrabanded food.
You ate all the contraband. Excuse me? Like, untrue, boss. We didn't eat it all. There's still a couple of gorgonzolas left. Help yourself. You're a couple of gorgonzolas. You're fired.
Right, and on that bombshell, back to the studio.
So, what's coming up for the new season?
A new series of segments called Haunted America.
Sort of a ghost to ghost with Daphne Blake.
Right, but this time I intend to find some real haunted houses for my viewers.
Gee, it's too bad the rest of the old gang won't be along for the ride.
Yeah, I really miss them.
Is this everything?
Uh-huh.
Got the maps?
Yeah?
Are you sure you haven't forgotten anything?
Fred, what is with you? Yes, I'm sure.
Well then...
Surprise! Happy birthday, Daphne!
Organised the entire gang to surprise her on her birthday and bring back the Mystery Inc. for one last journey.
Another scary night, another spooky fright, and we just might be in danger. The ghost is here and it's always a fake. The ghost is here, there's no reason to shake. The ghost is here, give us a break, it's fake. Another ghoulie takes, leaving death in the past, so we're making tracks for the ages. The ghost is here, he's a crook in a suit. The ghost is here, he's protecting salute. The ghost is here, give him the boot, he's fake. It doesn't matter where we go, we know the ghost is on a show, and so we look for the bogus, look for the scam. Every time the ghost is a sham. We see an eerie light, and if the mood is right, then we just might sight a monster. The ghost is here, it's a frightening task to face our fears and the creep in the mask. Until the ghost is here, there's no reason to ask. He's fake.
After encountering a lot of fake monsters, the gang finally ends up in New Orleans. While searching around for any real hauntings or mysteries that aren't fake, they get interrupted by a young woman called Alina Dupree, where she tells them about a real haunted island, haunted by a real ghost called Captain Morgan Moonscar.
Some guy in an old pirate suit trying to scare off the local kids.
The ghost is real, of course, if you're too scared to go.
Scared? Me? No, I don't think so.
If you want to check it out, you're welcome to come by. I'll be leaving as soon as I finish shopping.
Well, we'll think about it.
While the gang is skeptical of this news, they go to investigate anyway, and so they rally up with Lena to grab the ferry to the supposed haunted island called none other than Moonscar Island.
Hang on, guys!
Yo, holy shit, he dead!
Now with this happening, we get introduced to Snakebite Scruggs, a side character in the movie. Now he doesn't play an important role, like he doesn't really get referenced a lot, but he makes an odd appearance here and there, mostly saving Shaggy and Scooby, or Shaggy and Scooby getting in his way.
I can't stand tourists.
But he is a character that we will come back to later. Once on the island, the gang arrive at the destination, only for it to go pear-shaped when Scooby starts chasing down some cats that live on the island. Even though this isn't a big deal, it was a nice introduction to two new people. First one being Bo Neville, a gardener on the island. He comes off as edgy as his appearance seems sketchy and makes the viewers believe he's up to no good. The second person we meet is none other than Simone Lenoir, who is Lena's employer. She also owns the island and the house, stating that it's been in her family for generations.
It has been in my family for generations. It was a pepper plantation. Some of the hottest peppers in Louisiana grow on this island.
Speaking of hot peppers, do you guys remember the scene from the Scooby-Doo movie?
Okay. Scooby-Doo, you feeling okay? Oh no! Here you go, dude!
Maybe that could be a reference to this island. Maybe when they made that scene, it was basically a little Easter egg that the hot peppers came from that island. I know the jar only says hot peppers, but these are the hottest peppers in the world. And where else are the hottest peppers in the world kept? None other than Moonscar Island.
You're welcome to look around, if you'd like.
Would we ever? Do you mind us taping?
No, of course not. In fact, I'd be most flattered.
This leads the gang to film inside the house. It's also where we see a glimpse of our first supernatural appearance. This happens inside the kitchen area where Shaggy and Scooby are grabbing some food, so they can keep Scooby occupied from chasing cats. It's also the first scene we see these two try the hot peppers.
These puppies ought to do the trick.
Delicious lemonade, Lena.
Well, thank you. So, how long have you worked for me? The guys!
The first time they tried the peppers, they screamed the house down, alerting everyone in the house that they might be in danger, only to realise it was a false alarm.
Like that was some hot pepper.
I wasn't exaggerating when I said they were the hottest peppers in Louisiana.
With all the screaming, we thought you might have seen a ghost.
If we do, you'll be the first to know. Like, that's funny. A second ago, I was on fire, and now it's freezing. Freezing? Tell you what, like, we'll split this big one. That'll warm us up.
When they scream the second time, it's not due to the peppers, but in fact the ghost writing being drawn on the walls.
Now what?
Again, the rest of the gang run to see what's all the commotion's about. When entering the kitchens, Shaggy and Scooby are nowhere to be seen, and instead we see a cupboard door shaking, making an indication that there is something shivering with fear.
Peppers? Again?
Writing.
Writing? What writing?
Like ghost writing. See? This place is haunted.
Wow, Fred, get a shot of that!
Upon discovery of the ghost writing, Daphne gets Fred to start filming and asks Simone to join her on camera to do an interview of the newly discovered occurrence. This is where it gets more intense.
Here we are in Ms. Simone Lenoir's kitchen, where we've had our first encounter with the supernatural spirits of Moonscar Mansion. You can feel the
As
chill
Daphne is
in the air.
talking, a huge gust of wind enters the room.
Who opened a window? Nobody.
This is where things get more serious as more text is added to the wall. If ghost writing wasn't serious enough, we get levitation!
Wingardium Leviosa. Look, stop. You're going to take someone's eye out. Besides, you're saying it wrong. It's Leviosa, not Leviosa.
You do it then if you're so clever.
Go on, go on.
Wingardium Leviosa. Wingardium Leviosa.
Wingardium Leviosa.
This just gets better and better. Maybe from where you're standing.
As we all know from Scooby-Doo mythology, we know that this trick is performed by a hidden wire.
We've been levitated before, and there's always a magnet or wire somewhere.
No wires here, Fred.
We only have 3 reasons why this could be happening. 1, she's from Krypton. 2, ghosts are real. Or 3, she's managed to bend the wheel of laws of physics to her whim and defy gravity as we know it.
Anybody want to try getting me down?
Sure thing. Come on, Scoob.
Okay, maybe not. But at least she was inside and not outside. That's a good thing at least. Moving on, we see that they're all inside this library or study area, where we see Fred doing some amazing camera work to improve the footage on the tape to see what's actually happening inside the kitchen. I know what you guys were thinking. You sick-minded fools, it was not to look up her skirt, you perverts. It was in fact to see what caused that writing on the wall. How dare you think Fred would abuse his powers as a cameraman to do that?
It is the ghost of Morgan Moonscar. Here, let me show you. This is a portrait of Morgan McCrite. The moon-shaped scar is why he became better known as Morgan Moonscar.
That's right, we get our first look at Captain Morgan Moonscar. Later on, we see Velma in the kitchen studying the writing on the walls before she grabs a spatula and starts to peel off the paintwork on the walls to reveal another message.
What are you doing to my kitchen? Jinkies. Guess I got carried away.
Linking up to Moonscar's ship.
Bingo! Well, according to this book, the Maelstrom was the name of Morgan Moonscar's pirate ship.
I am not surprised. Parts of this house are quite old. Pieces of the pirate ship could have been used in the construction. Morgan Moonscar was rumored to have buried treasure on the island, though it was never found.
Aha! I knew it! It's some guy disguised as a pirate ghost trying to scare everyone off the island.
In a way, this does make the gardener a prime suspect. If you look at it, it does give him the actual perfect motive to go around digging up holes because he's a gardener. And last time I checked, you're not going to go to a gardener and say, "Hey, what are you doing? You can't dig up holes. I'm a gardener. What do you think plants belong in ground, you moron?" He's a killer officer. Arrest him. He does come off kind of suspicious and broody. Like he's like the Batman of the era. Like he's just got that broody tone where he's just like not too much friendly, just too much grumpy, and you know, it comes off like a really suspicious.
Hey, you mutt! I just planted those!
Okay, I guess Scooby didn't really help when he trashed his garden, but still, that man's a prime suspect. Cutting away from the kitchen, we find Shaggy and Scooby eating outside. It's not until the cats show up that we see Scooby again on the hunt.
Come back, Scoob! That grouchy gardener isn't gonna be happy about this.
If that wasn't bad enough, Scooby managed to annoy Snakebite Scruggs once again by scaring away Big Mona for the second time.
Big Mona! Blimey.
You know, at this point I really feel sorry for Snakebite Scruggs. You know, he's only a fisherman trying to catch Big Mona and he gets interrupted by Shaggy and Scooby. Yes, he saved them the first time, but this time it's just getting ridiculous. You know, they just keep getting in his way.
Darn tourist. Get him, Mojo!
If you don't quite remember what Mojo is, he is a hunting pig, also known as a hog, and apparently a lot smarter than any Great Dane. If we never got this chase scene, we would have never got Shaggy and Scooby into that hole. In fact, we would never have got the scene of them in the hole to discover the reanimation of the corpse. It's a perfect build-up to this lineman. It explains how they got there and what proceeds next.
Like, hang on. I'll help us out in a sec. I also.
This scene is done superbly, from the abnormal weather to the green mysterious aura that's shaped like a lightning bolt rushing from the clouds to the ground only to reanimate a dead corpse, the corpse of none other than Captain Moonscar himself. This is the first time seeing a supernatural occurrence happen for the first time on a physical scale. You can tell it's the Captain due to the scar on the right side of his face that's shaped like a moon. Screaming and shouting their way back to the house, they meet up with the rest of the gang outside to explain to them what happened and what they just experienced.
All the way to the house.
Oh, it's you guys. Like, it was horrible. That pirate Moonscar was like nothing but bones. And then he got worse, like a zombie.
Oh dear.
But as always, the rest of the gang never really witnessed the animated corpse, or known as a zombie. Typical, it's always Shaggy and Scooby who witness these things, and the rest of the gang always miss out, and then they don't believe them till the last possible second. But all is not lost. Now that the gang know about the hole in the ground, they can suspect the gardener even more now, because why would he be digging it? What could it be for? It can't be to plant flowers, because that hole is way too big. If you're burying an elephant, or a ton of dead bodies from victims in the past, then yes, the hole would be big enough.
There's something suspicious about that gardener.
Yeah, he is suspicious, but he is kinda cute.
If this wasn't bad enough, Daphne makes Fred jealous by calling the weed killer kind of cute. And I know what you're thinking, yes, I'm jumping the gun, but I'm giving him a badass serial killer nickname, because if he does turn out to be a serial killer, we got the name sorted.
Well, if we're all through here, maybe we should get going?
You see what you did now, Daphne? Making Fred all jealous. Heck, he wants to leave because of this. How could you? Well, technically they can't leave, as Simone explains that the ferry doesn't run at sunset.
But it is getting close to sunset, and the ferry doesn't run at night.
Like we do.
We have plenty of rooms. You could stay for the night.
What are the odds of that happening? Now they have to stay on this island filled with the undead zombies, and God knows what else. Oh yeah, a maniac snakebite Scruggs who just really hates people right now. Oh, and a potential serial killer codenamed the Weed Whacker. Okay, I know what you guys are thinking. You know, I just gave him a nickname and I'm slightly changing it. But you know, I kind of like Weed Whacker. It sounds better than Weed Killer. You don't want to say, oh my god, it's the Weed Killer. No, you need a good, badass, evil villain name. The Weed Whacker. So with the warrior being stranded on an island late at night, Simone offers to let them spend the night, which Shaggy and Scooby happily agree once they know that food is on the menu.
Sure thing, Miss Lenoir. I'll start dinner.
River? Like, why didn't you say so?
Fast forwarding ahead, however, we see the gang being shown to their rooms. It's not till a bit later on in Shaggy's room that another ghost sighting happens. This time in form of a spirit rather than a reanimated corpse or a physical spectrum.
Get away. Like, who's that? Well, I don't know. Get away.
This ghost, however, is none other than Colonel Jackson T. Pettigrew, a Confederate soldier, who came to Moonscar Island while in the 8th Louisiana Regiment during the American Civil War. While the ghost presence is unsure, it seems to alarm Shaggy and Scooby into panic mode, which ends up alerting all the others, only for them to find no evidence of this ghost in the room.
In here.
I don't see anything.
Like, in the mirror. It's some Civil War guy.
Well, there's nothing in the mirror now, guys.
There's nothing behind the mirror either.
Like ghost pirates, ghost soldiers. What's next?
Dinner!
Lena lets everyone know that dinner is being served, which makes Shaggy and Scooby forget all about this ghost. Now, while everyone's inside, enjoying dinner where it's warm, safe, surrounded by 4 doors, Shaggy and Scooby, however, well, they're not so lucky. Outside. So if you're confused as to why they're outside and not inside, it's because Simone doesn't like dogs, and as she has cats, the only place for Scooby and Shaggy to go is in the kitchen or outside. But since the kitchen is overrun by Simone's cats, they end up eating inside the mystery machine, where it'd be a lot safer and a bit warmer than being left outside. At this point, scenes go backwards and forwards between Fred, Daphne and Velma to Scooby and Shaggy. Scenes from inside the house really focus on the strange supernatural occurrences on the island, with Fred giving his ideas as to why the hauntings are happening and why the gardener is probably a key suspect. Back outside, we see Shaggy and Scooby drinking from a really unusual river. Keeping in mind where they are, I don't think this is the best choice for their health, drinking from swamp water. Not long after that, green lightning starts to come down from the clouds, rushing towards the river, reanimating the corpse that had been buried there. Now this is when you start to admire the designs of each of the characters that gets presented in this movie. The under designs are really top notch. You can see the high rich levels of detail in each frame by frame, as you see the drawings have more life to the animation. But back in the day when they did animations, it was a lot different to how it's done now, all on computers. But back then they had to be all hand drawn frame by frame, so each drawing took in a level of detail that added more life to the character, thus making them more appealing to the eye. This is something that never gets the same treatment in today's way of animation, where it's all done on computers and not all hand drawn. That's why I appreciate these sorts of movies that use this old style of animation to produce. So when you watch this and watch the scenes where the zombies come out of the ground, you see so much rich textures, so much tone, so much life being brought into each of those designs, that you saw that the creators that worked on those animations frame by frame took their time in detailing it to the point where it looks so realistic for its time. And for the first animated zombie bit in a Scooby-Doo film, they really went all out, and you could see that in just those details alone. Now, however, if you compare it to the Return of Zombie Island zombies and do a side-by-side comparison, you will see that the animators who worked on Return of Zombie Island zombies didn't really have that same compassion and that same drive to make the zombies look as realistic as possible, but rather make it obvious that they weren't actually real and they were just like rubber masks. Like, the different tones in between the two knew that like the past had so much dedication and frame by frame being hand drawn to the point where you just lost all that emotion and all that dedication in this new style of animation that you work with. And I think that's what failed in the sequel, whereas this one will always be the greatest one of all time. Heading back to the movie, this is where things start to go from bad to complete mayhem. This is the moment where things start to get crazy, and it takes the entire audience by surprise. Seeing Shaggy and Scooby go old school GTA on those zombies. Now, before you guys start telling me that these zombies aren't real, that they're probably animatronics or some people in costumes or whatnot, let me tell you this. At this point, there's been no confirmation whether these zombies are fake. So far, from what the evidence that we have seen with our own 2 eyes, that these are real supernatural creatures known as the undead. And therefore, they're real. And therefore, Shaggy killed one. And therefore, he is a saint. Now, if that couldn't get any worse, it does. Typical. In the situation where you need the car the most, it stops working at that precise moment. But when you don't want it, it works like a charm. I guarantee you, at the end, the van works fine, regardless of whether it was stuck in the same position or not. It's every horror movie classic cliche. I think this is a better time than any to push F in the chat for Shaggy and Scooby. There's no way that anyone can hear them. They're miles away from the mansion, in the middle of a swamp, literally cut off from the outside world. They are done for. Because zoot, nothing can save them, nothing can hear them.
Now what?
Oh, what a load of pig's farts. They're way out there in the swamp biome, isolated with the trees and God knows what else. But yet, their cries for help manage to get heard by everyone in the mansion. Well, at least it gets them out of there, I suppose. But still, you think from being teens they would at least know the rules of surviving a horror movie. First rule being the simplest one: if you hear something in the dead of night, you turn your ass around and you run in the opposite direction. You don't run towards the screams, because that's where the danger's happening. Because you want to know why? They're screaming for a reason. They're not screaming because they're happy. They're screaming because they're being ripped from limb to limb. So you think, screw that. I could save them, but there's a payphone this way. So I'm going to go to the payphone and let the sheriff's department deal with this, or whoever's got jurisdiction. And if you're oblivious to the first rule, there's the second rule. Now this rule is very simple. Don't split up.
I think we should split up.
You know, I'm all down for divide and conquer, but when it's a situation like this, and you know it's going to go south, why in the phlegm gloats farts would you ever decide to do that? Now, with Shaggy and Scooby currently lost, how will they divide the teams?
I'll go with Bo.
Bad idea.
I'll go with Bo. I won't let him out of my sight.
Oh, that's perfect. Makes a lot of sense now. Team up with Weed Whacker. You know, it wasn't like we just accused him earlier on.
Why do you keep treating me like I'm a suspect?
Because you are. Shaggy, Scooby. Hey, let me go.
Okay, so Velma's dead. Moving on to plan B. How could we fill her spot? It's hot dog water. Well, there's something to see the other day. Seems that Daphne hasn't forgotten her training. This is the scene where the gang find out that the zombies aren't animatronics, aren't people in costumes, but they are in fact real zombies. And I think this clip should be played so you can see it for yourself.
The gardeners.
No.
It's the fisherman.
No!
It's the ferryman.
Roll!
Maybe it's real. Huh.
Not long after, we hear the screams coming from the mansion, where they left Simone and Lena unprotected. Again, how are they hearing the screams from way into the swamp, as clear as if it was right in front of you? Another thing I don't get is, if they could hear Lena all the way from the swamp, from the mansion, how did they not hear Shaggy and Scooby vice versa as well, while they were in the swamp together? Now, they were in close proximity in that swamp to begin with, and the mansion is pretty far away. So how come they can hear her clearly, but when they were screaming out for Shaggy and Scooby, they couldn't hear them and they couldn't hear them? How does that work? Well, let's head back into the action, where we see Fred, Daphne and Velma, who isn't dead, alongside the gardener, who didn't kill her, enter the mansion, giving us all the Resident Evil vibes that we hold dear, as we find Lena in shock as she explains that the zombies drag Simone away into this dark, creepy, secret underground passageway hidden underneath the stairwell.
What's going on?
It was a nightmare. Ms. Lenoir and I went outside to wait for you when we were attacked by these zombies. Yes. We ran back to the house, and Ms. Lenoir opened the secret passageway. She said it was built during the Civil War to hide from Union soldiers, but the zombies came after us. They grabbed Ms. Lenoir and dragged her away. wish you've come.
Okay, so Simone's dead. It's pretty obvious. You're being dragged away by zombies. Last time I checked, zombies do not need hostages unless they're getting their intelligence back. And in that case, we're screwed. When we reach the end of the tunnel, Velma points out, using a detective brain of hers, that Simone wasn't dragged away, but in fact, she walked down that tunnel.
But why don't we just ask Lena?
What are you talking about?
Her story about Simone getting dragged by zombies wasn't true. I saw the footprints of Simone's heels. She wasn't dragged. She walked down that tunnel.
Very clever, Velma. But it's too late.
We also find out about the wax figures that were used to levitate Velma off the ground in the kitchen earlier on in the movie. And again later on in the forest, which we never cleared, but yeah, that happened.
The harvest moon will soon reach the midnight point on this moon dial, and then the ceremony will begin.
What ceremony?
A ceremony where they drain the life energy from the victims they brought to their island, so they can sustain their immortality.
Hand on heart, when I first saw this transformation as a kid for the first time, it scared the bejeebers out of me. I didn't know if I was watching a Scooby-Doo movie or an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark? I think many of us can agree throughout the entire Scooby-Doo timeline, through all the movies, the shows, I think for reveals, this is the one that really takes it. Like, this is the best reveal that we had so far, and it still lives up to today. Like, I don't think there's any reveal in Scooby-Doo history that matches this or tops it in any way. And as an added bonus, it kind of gives closure to the whole Simone and Lena's backstory. Like, it gives their origin story that ties in with Captain Moonscar, and then how the events followed through history, through the souls and the victims that they had leading to that island. Like, this really puts the nail on the coffin. Like, this really explains a lot throughout this movie and gives us that kind of information that fulfills the timeline. It's a bit like watching Lost. Like, you watch the first season, but then when you watch the other 5, you get more story, like not just to the cast, but to the origins of the island, and so many unanswered questions that leave you baffled to the point where you have to re-watch it. So in a way, it's sort of similar like that. Like, it just fills that gap. Like, this was so dark and gruesome. At the time, people were surprised like any of this would be in a Scooby-Doo movie. The level of depth that went into this, the horrors, what happened on the island, literally makes this movie one of the greatest. Heck, I thought the gardener was the main villain. Like, I wasn't prepared for this at all, not mentally at least. Like, no one would have thought Simone and Alina were the main culprits. They don't really seem that dangerous at the start. Like, you don't really suspect them because they're so innocent. But then again, it's always the innocent ones that are the dangerous. And if that wasn't shocking enough, there's another big reveal. Yep, that's right, Jax the Furry Driver is also a werecat. This one again came to a surprise, but looking into it further kind of makes sense, because if he wasn't on it, then it would become obvious to the public that no one returned from the island after getting dropped off. Comparing the designs between Jax and Simone and Lena's, it seems Jax has more features when it comes to the body, and by this I mean the fur. While they all share the same werecat curs, it seems to make their appearance different. This could be because of gender or age, or possibly the type of cat involving linked to the possible spirit animal or something. Matching them together would be hard to tell who's the strongest out of the three, but guessing on the build alone, I'd say Jax is more adaptable at fighting hands-on, but Simone and Lena pair up, so fighting 2-on-1 evens those odds. Plus, it isn't noted how long Jax has been a werecat. If I had to guess, I'd roughly say about 100 years. Further in, we notice that the zombies are in fact victims of Simone and Lena.
And those zombies are just the poor souls you drained. They were just trying to warn us so we wouldn't suffer the same fate they did.
Not counting Captain Moonscar, because probably he deserved it. mainly because he's the cause of all this. His selfish act that day caused this curse upon Simone and Lena. Even though they drained and lured innocent people to keep their immortality, it was the actions of Moonscar that led to all of this. So when I say victims, I mean the innocent ones that didn't deserve to get drained of their life.
We uttered a curse on the pirates to destroy them as they had destroyed our island. Our wish was granted.
Only afterwards, when invoking the cat god's powers, they'd learn that they'd be cursed as well, sort of like a double-edged sword.
Only afterwards did we discover that invoking the cat god's power had cursed us as well.
It was at this moment they had a choice to make. Let the curse end, resulting in a demise, or continue to drain people and stay alive. By taking the second road, both Simone and Lena sealed their fates, thus becoming as, or if not greater murderers than Captain Moonscar ever was. But, with all that being said, it still doesn't stop the captain and all the other undead souls trying to save the gang from not having to suffer the same way they did.
They must be drained now!
It's not long after this though that we see Shaggy and Scooby of all people coming to the gang's rescue, something you rarely see from these two. Even though it's brief and not really heroic, they still find time to get off topic.
Like, what are you guys doing? Charades?
Since knowing that they're almost out of time, they have no time to waste and decide to go all out to reveal their true form.
Power levels 8,000, huh? Now it's over 9.
Vegeta, what does the scouter say about his power level?
It's over 9,000!
What, 9,000?
But if scenes weren't intense enough, let's just look what happens when Shaggy and Scooby knock the voodoo dolls near the flames. Like, I get the magic dolls have some sort of power hold over the user it's possessing, but I'd never imagined that they'd be melted. That's insane of how ridiculously powerful these are. It's also around this time that we finally get a close-up of what Simone and Lena meant by draining the life from their victims. In this horrific moment, we see Shaggy and Scooby's bodies start to shrink, and we see the life itself being drained from them. If it wasn't for Velma's quick thinking with the voodoo dolls, we could have seen Shaggy and Scooby finish right here. But with the dolls at work, we do get to see them get a taste of their own medicine, which is ironic, seeing their own weapon being used against them. But sadly, nothing good lasts for long, as we see Jax knocks the dolls from Velma's grip. And this is where things reach its climax. Then, at the end of the line, where your back's against the walls, until a miracle happens. Yep, that's right, the sundial, or the moon dial in this case, has passed midnight. Meaning that Simone, Lena and Jax have run out of time to drain the souls needed to keep their curse afloat, and thus brings us to the last epic scene from this movie, the destruction of the Werecat. One of the best scenes of all time in a Scooby-Doo movie. Seeing the details of them, where they got stripped from their bare skin to the bare bone, incinerate into ash before our eyes, into pretty much nothing. Dust was just blown away. The only thing that remained was Simone's amulet. I think the real credit here was with the undead and the werecats, because that was something we never saw from Warner Bros. Like, this really took us off the edge of our seats. It was really amazing seeing them take the horror genre of zombies and, you know, werecats and bring them to a family show and make it successful. So with the curse lifted and the gang saved, the undead can finally be put to rest after their long suffering ordeal, truly adding a slightly happy ending in the midst of all this mess.
Sharks! Like, what's happening to them?
Their spirits have been avenged, Shaggy, so they can finally rest in peace.
And with the case solved, we get another surprise when Bo, the gardener, reveals his true identity.
I've got nothing for my show.
Yeah, and the police will never believe this story either.
Don't be so sure. I'm Detective Bone Neville. Been working undercover investigating the island disappearances.
Jinkies! So that's why you were digging around.
After all these accusations that we've made towards him, well, by we, I mean me, it turns out he was none other than an undercover detective, solving a crime that has been planted on this island for many years, trying to solve the case of missing people, where people come to the island and then they don't ever leave and no one's ever heard of them. So yes, I have admitted I was wrong. He was not a serial killer. Even though I branded the name Weed Whacker, it turns out he was all innocent. But with the tape gone and no evidence to prove any of this actually happened, Daphne's story comes to an end. Even though she had witnesses, people still wouldn't believe it, as there'd be so many questions left unanswered. In conclusion, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island will forever be one of the most greatest spectacles in history, one of the greatest family-friendly films in the ages. Like, pretty much you cannot top this or screwed up in any way. Warner Bros. Really perfected this movie outstandingly, combining the horror and the family genre together, making a movie where you can be just as frightening and scary, but also make it as friendly as possible, with a nice happy ending. You know, in all my years of watching Scooby-Doo, I don't think Warner Bros. Can screw this up. Hold on a second, I'm just going to get the doorbell. Well, that was eventful. I didn't even order anything, and you know, there was a mysterious package left on my porch. Just got a E on it. Alright then, that's very helpful. There's many type of E's out there. Gotta go for the yellow pages, but thank you for making my life difficult. Hang on. A gift from me to you. Signed Mr. E? How the hell did he know where I live? It's not like I made myself public. It's not like I've gone, this is where I live on Google Maps. It's not like I have a VPN to hide my location. Anyway, let's see what this guy sent me. It could be fan mail, but I highly doubt it. Oh, it's a DVD. Alright then. I wonder what it could possibly... I know the best solution for this garbage. It's called trash.